Hi, folks. My name is J.M. Erlinson. I'm a transformation engineering lead here at Software AG and a specialist in the Eris platform. And today we're doing another one of our videos in our series called Help, I'm an Eris admin, how to support your first Eris project or instance. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about one of the things that's going to be important as you're configuring how your platform works, what components are available in Eris for users to put in their models, the different objects, the different types of models. And that's more of an advanced conversation about method configuration. Those possibilities, if you watched one of the other videos called Method Filter Configuration, it ties directly in with it, because this is what populates the list of possibilities for your method filter. Now, the method is going to allow you to do things like create your own custom model types, create your own custom object types or symbol types, your own attribute types, your own connections, those sorts of things that will help to better define exactly how Eris works to meet your organization's needs. Now, like everything else we've talked about in Eris, this is going to be done in the administration menu of Eris Architect. The majority of things we've talked about, that's where a lot of the administrative work that takes place in Eris is done. And once again, you're going to need that configuration management functional privilege in order to execute this particular function. Now, in the past, I've been in this conventions area. Now I'm going to go and open up this method area. Now this is going to be where I actually refer back to a few times, because a method contains the master list of all of the possibilities that you could include in Eris based off of our default configuration. It comes sort of out of the box with all the things you could use. And that includes, a couple hundred model types. That includes thousands of different symbols. That includes lots and lots of objects. You can see that the list is very large. The possibilities are pretty extensive. So you're going to want to, first and foremost, pare that down using method filters. But secondly, if you don't see something here that you want, you're going to want to add things to your model types and object types and symbols and connections and attributes, that sort of thing, to help make your method filter more complete with custom configured things for you and your organization. So let's start with model types. Now I can create new models, model types. Let's say I have a special type of model that's particular to me. Maybe I'm an organization that cares a lot about widget tracking. And so I'm going to create a widget tracking model that will document out the decomposition of how our widgets work. You could use a product service tree, but this is just an example. I can create a new model type, and that's going to open up a really just blank screen, let me do something from scratch. And I'll show you how to do that. As a note for you, you can also, if you like a model and you want to create something that's very similar to it, but you want to change a few things, like for instance, I happen to love this axis diagram, but I want my own version of it. I can do something called creating a new derived model type. And what derived model types do is they have all the properties of the previous model. So a perfect example of that is if it has all of the different object types that are allowed on it, all the connections that are allowed on it. It just lets you now edit this without having to edit the original model type and change it from the standard and have to go back and maybe reset it later. As a note for you, you can also rename models types. So for instance, if EPC doesn't make any sense to you, like event-driven process chain, it's very simple for me to just go here and rename this to be process model. As a note for you, we do retain the original name. So even if you rename those model types to be whatever you want, first and foremost, the API name is going to remain the same. So that's going to be useful for in case you ever want to head against it for reporting, or if you want to reference it for things like spreadsheet imports. But you can see now it's moved it down to process model. And so the original name is EPC. And I'm actually going to go here and say restore Eris defaults because I don't want that in my particular model. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is create a brand new model type. Now, you're going to need a few different things for this model type. So let's go and create a brand new one. I'm going to create my special widget model we talked about earlier, and I'll give it a name, my widget model. And here's the description. This is the breakdown of widgets. Now, what view it exists in is these are different ways you can select from models. You saw it before, sort of everything checked, different types of views. This is just a way of filtering down things for configuration. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna call this the process view, increments definition. And then here are the different attributes that are allowed on my model. Here's a bunch of default attributes that can come And I can see these are all default model attributes, and I can add more into here from my total list of attributes available. If I wanted to have add or remove attributes. And that's going to be particularly important as we create attributes, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then on this model, I can also add symbols. So here, just kind of like you saw in the method filter, if you watch that video, I can choose different symbols that I want to allow on this particular model type. And it's going to be relevant. There's a couple things here that you want to make sure you check or uncheck. Things like structurally relevant. That's relevant for process models. You can say this particular object is part of a main structure, something I should be aware of for like a main flow. And default is that this will show up by default on the model as we open it up for the first time. So that's important to be able to have just sort of select between these things. And then next, we're going to add connections. And this is where it starts to take a little bit longer when you're creating your custom model type, because I'm going to say from symbol to symbol, here are the connections I'm going to allow. So you can see how this is a superset of what the method filter eventually allows as a subset. So it's going to open up a connections menu, and you'll probably want to expand it. So this partly automated process accepts this actions, and now that's added to it, and I can click add, and I can now filter down all these possible connections. And I'm creating my custom model here, my widget model. And I'm gonna hit OK, and you see that'll create it here. Now, note that it's gonna get a type number and an API name that's a lot higher and a lot weirder. These are things that Eris automatically allocates to the custom things you create. And it makes it very easy to understand. It's user defined, and here's its API name. It doesn't have a default API name, and its type number has 5 digits. It's not one of our default types. The next thing I can talk about is we can add. We're gonna actually talk about and create custom symbols at a later time. So we're gonna take a look at that later. Generally, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna keep the object types we have. We can rename them, but these are the generally accepted types of information we're gonna want people to be using in Eris. If you can't find something you need, have a conversation with your specialist. This gets into much more detail if you want to get down that road. But generally, try and select from the list of objects. Now you can see what these objects are by simply hitting edit and saying, okay, so this capability object is a perfect example of something that I might want to see a little bit more information about. Here are the attributes that it has, and here are the things that it's assigned to. And so we can see, these are where this particular object is assigned, and you can sort of go through and find that information out. If I want to add custom attributes, also a very common thing you're going to do, like for instance, you've got your special sauce like widget number. You're going to go over here and you see there's a ton of attributes that are available out of the box. That's thousands of attributes available if you wanted to add them, but you can also go through and add your own new attribute type. And so the attribute, you give it a name. So I'm going to go widget number. As I know, you can make attributes editable or not editable. Non-editable attributes are pretty handy when it comes to having them be automatically populated by things like governance tasks. So no user can go in and change the status of a model, but an automated governance task can write over that. This is going to be the product number of the widget. And then I'm going to go through here and I can give it an attribute type group. So that's, once again, you can see attribute groups over here on the top right side. That's just ways of encapsulating information. I'm going to give it attribute group. This is going to be the analysis attribute over here. And then now I can choose values and symbols. So you can choose how an attribute is portrayed. Once again, you select the type of attribute. Right now I've selected multi-line text, but I can choose number. So I can choose integer, I can choose floating point number, I can choose date and time. And actually something pretty cool, I can choose something that allows me to select from a drop-down box called value. And so values and symbols actually allow me to add a bunch of values. So for instance, the widget number could be 1, or it could be 2, or it could be 3, or it could be 4. I can actually have a pre-selected set of boxes that people can drop down from just really easily. There's one more thing to note here, that you do have the ability to allocate, and so I'm going to expand it a little bit to show you. You do have the ability to allocate each of these values to a symbol. That's going to be relevant later on. For instance, if we select a symbol like an upward arrow or downward arrow, like the value of 1 on this widget is, it's a downward arrow. Value of 2 is a slightly pointed to the right arrow. Value of 3 is like a middle arrow. And you can later on use that to place that symbol on your model. to sort of change the way it looks based on this attribute value. That's one of the ways we do conditional formatting in Eris. So I'm gonna call it done. Here's my widget number, and that's gonna be right over here. Now remember we talked about this before, but we also wanna go back, and as an example on the model type, we need to go back and add widget number as an attribute that you could have. So let's go over here to my widget model, down over here, and edit that, and I'm gonna go over and add that. I can just go over add that in my attributes. Select a new attribute over here. So that's how you create things in the method. It's pretty handy. Once again, you can add more symbols that we'll talk about later. You can add more groups if you wanted to do different things to encapsulate attributes. But creating attributes, creating models, those sort of configured, different ways of portraying information. That's a really important part of modifying the way in which Eris works to match your organization's needs. And so once again, I suggest trying this out. Don't worry, as long as none of the users are on the system yet, you can just play with this infinitely until the cows come home and change everything. Make sure that you have exactly what you need. And then when you're ready to go, you can open the users up and let them loose onto your Eris environment configured for their use. Once again, I'm J.M. Rollinson. Please leave feedback, comments, anything you want about the series of videos. We love getting that sort of feedback, and I'm excited to continue to present more of these things as we go along on how to get Eris stood up as your Eris administrator. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video.